You know how everyone's interested in alternative energy these days? Well, we're diving into this promotional piece that's been making the rounds online. It's called Ultimate Off-Grid Generator. Kill energy bills forever. Have you seen that one?
Oh, yeah, definitely seen that one floating around.
Yeah, it's everywhere. And, people are looking into alternative energy solutions, and this claims to be like the holy grail, right?
Yeah.
But, like, is it too good to be true?
Well, it's definitely tapping into a very real concern, right?
Yeah.
Rising energy costs. And a lot of people want more self-sufficiency these days. They're looking for more control over their power, and this generator claims to be the answer.
Right off the bat, they're promising no more expensive electricity bill, which is tempting for sure. But I'm curious, if someone really wanted to ditch the grid, wouldn't solar panels be like a more proven starting point?
You're right, solar is definitely a popular option. And with net metering and all that, you can often sell excess power back to the grid, which is cool. But this alternate generator claims to be even simpler and cheaper to build than solar. They're pretty vague about how the technology works, though. They just mention a unique energy source, but there's no specifics, which is a bit of a red flag for me. It kind of reminds me of those perpetual motion machines.
Hmm.
Always sounds too good to be true.
Okay, so let's get into how this thing supposedly works. They say it doesn't use fossil fuels, it doesn't use sunlight, it stores excess energy, and it works in any weather. I mean, come on, doesn't that sound a little too good to be true?
It does raise some serious questions. I mean, how can you generate power without any external input? What is this magical energy source they're so secretive about? It's like they're trying to bypass the laws of thermodynamics.
Hmm.
You really have to approach these kinds of claims with a healthy dose of skepticism.
All right, so let's break down their claims one by one. First up, eliminate expensive electricity bills. Now, I get the appeal, but even if this thing worked, wouldn't your energy usage still play a role?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the size of your home, what kind of appliances you use, your energy habits, all of those things influence how much electricity you actually need. Even with supplemental power generation, realistically, reducing your bills takes more than just plugging in a magic box. It usually involves energy efficiency too, and carefully choosing the right technology.
So maybe instead of aiming to kill energy bills entirely, the goal should be to create a more sustainable and cost-effective system. But what about their claim that this generator is simple and affordable to build? They make it sound like a weekend project.
Yeah, that's where things get a little tricky. DIY energy projects can be deceptively complex, even if you have clear instructions. Sourcing the right materials, making sure it's assembled properly, addressing safety concerns, it all requires a certain level of skill and knowledge.
Plus, I imagine unexpected costs can pop up along the way, right? Like you think you got everything and then suddenly,
Exactly. That affordable price tag might not include everything. And then there's maintenance,
hmm,
and longevity. How long will this thing actually last? What happens when something breaks? These are all crucial considerations that can impact how affordable any energy solution really is in the long run.
all right, let's move on to their claim that it's a reliable and sustainable power source. They specifically highlight its ability to work in any weather. Now, being free from cloudy days like solar would be a big deal, but can any power source be truly weather independent?
That's the holy grail, isn't it? I mean, while diversifying your energy sources can help mitigate weather-related fluctuations, traditional sources all have their limitations. Wind turbines need wind, hydro needs flowing water, even geothermal can be affected by seismic activity. You know what I mean?
So it's more about understanding the trade-offs and finding the right mix of solutions for your specific needs and your environment. Like, for example, someone in a windy coastal area might lean towards wind power, while someone in a sunny desert might choose solar.
Precisely. And it's important to remember that reliability isn't just about the weather, it's also about the overall durability of the system, maintenance requirements, and the availability of replacement parts. All of that factors in.
Okay, so next on their list of amazing benefits is ideal for emergency preparedness.
Yeah.
Now, having backup power during an outage is a must for a lot of folks. But how does this ultimate generator compare to, say, a portable generator or a battery system?
That's a great point. Each solution has its pros and cons. Portable generators, they can be pretty noisy and you need fuel for them. Battery systems have limited capacity. And then this ultimate generator comes along. It might offer an alternative, but without knowing more about the power output or the storage capabilities, it's hard to say how effective it would really be in an actual emergency.
All right, so it really comes down to weighing your options and choosing what's best for your specific situation. Like if you need to power medical equipment, you'd want a really reliable solution that could last a while, right?
Absolutely. And don't forget about ease of use. In an emergency, you don't want to be fumbling around with some complicated system. You need something simple and straightforward.
Okay, last but not least, they claim this generator is environmentally friendly. But as we know, that can be a bit of a loaded term. How do we even begin to compare the environmental impact of this, unknown technology to other energy sources?
Well, it's definitely not as simple as just slapping an eco-friendly label on something. We need to think about the entire life cycle, right? The materials used in its construction, the energy needed to manufacture and operate it, even how it's disposed of at the end of its life. It's a whole process.
So even renewable energy sources can have environmental impacts. It's about looking at the bigger picture.
Exactly. I mean, think about solar panels. They require mining for certain materials, and their production uses energy too. The key is to weigh those impacts against the benefits and compare them to other options.
It sounds like there's a lot to consider when you're evaluating how sustainable an energy solution really is. Now, this source lists a whole bunch of people this generator is supposedly perfect for. Homeowners, survivalists, people with RVs and campers, people in remote areas, basically anyone seeking energy independence. But wouldn't the ideal solution vary a lot depending on someone's needs and their circumstances?
You're absolutely right. What works for a homeowner who's just looking to save a few bucks on their energy bill might not be right for someone living off-grid in a remote cabin. It's all about matching the technology to the specific context.
So for someone who's seriously interested in exploring off-grid living, where should they start? If this ultimate generator is probably just hype, what are some more reliable ways to achieve those goals? Lower energy bills, greater self-sufficiency, and a lighter environmental footprint.
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? And honestly, it deserves a deep dive of its own. There's no one-size-fits-all answer, but a good place to start is understanding the different off-grid technologies that are out there.
Okay, so let's talk about those. What are some of the more, proven and reliable technologies that are available?
Well, solar is always a popular choice, especially with all the improvements they've made in panel efficiency and battery storage. Then there's wind power, which can be great if you're in an area with consistent wind. Hydropower is another option, but that's more location specific. You need access to flowing water for that to work. And let's not forget about geothermal, which uses the Earth's heat. Each technology has its pluses and minuses, and the best choice depends on your individual needs and resources.
So it's about doing your research and figuring out which technology best aligns with your location, your energy needs, and of course your budget, right?
Exactly. And remember, off-grid living often involves a combination of approaches. You might have solar panels for electricity, a wood-burning stove for heat, a rainwater collection system for water. It's about putting together a system that works for you.
And maybe it's not always about completely disconnecting from the grid, but finding ways to rely on it less. Could something like solar with net metering be a good first step towards more energy independence?
Absolutely. Net metering lets you sell extra solar power back to the grid, which can help offset your energy costs and reduce your carbon footprint. It's a great way to start getting into renewable energy without going totally off-grid.
So there's a lot to consider, and it's really about finding what fits your situation best. But let's get back to the ultimate off-grid generator for a second. We've been pretty skeptical, and for good reason. But is there anything about their claims that, makes you curious at all?
Well, the idea of a weather-independent energy source is definitely intriguing. And they talk about using materials that are readily available, which could make it more accessible and affordable, if it actually worked.
So maybe there's like a nugget of an idea there, but the way they're presenting it and the lack of transparency are major red flags. It goes back to what we were saying before about being wary of hype and doing your research.
Right. It's easy to get drawn in by the promise of an easy solution, especially with something as important as energy. But we can't forget that there are no magic bullets out there.
Okay, so let's wrap up this deep dive. We've looked at the claims, we've explored alternative solutions, and hopefully we've given our listeners the tools to navigate this whole world of off-grid living. What's the most important thing you want to leave them with?
I'd say it's about having a mindset of, informed skepticism. Be curious, ask questions, and don't be afraid to challenge claims, even if they sound really good. Energy independence is a journey, and it starts with learning as much as you can and making choices that are right for you and your goals.
So don't believe everything you read, especially when it comes to big promises about killing energy bills forever.
Do your research, look at different options, and remember there's no single perfect solution for everyone.
Exactly. And, energy independence isn't just about individual self-sufficiency. It's also about helping to create a more sustainable and resilient energy future for everyone.
Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about today. We've debunked some myths, we've talked about different solutions, and hopefully we've inspired some folks to start their own journey toward energy independence.
And we've really emphasized how important critical thinking and informed decision-making are.
Because in the end, it's not about finding the ultimate solution. It's about finding the right approach for you, for your specific needs and your values.
And who knows, maybe in a future deep dive, we'll find that truly groundbreaking technology that really does live up to the hype.
Until then, keep being curious, keep asking questions, and never stop exploring all the possibilities of a more sustainable and independent energy future.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time on the deep dive. It's like a whole new way of thinking about things. It's not just about finding a quick fix. It's about really considering our energy choices and how they affect our lives and the planet.
I totally agree. It's a bigger picture kind of thing. And that actually brings us to a question for all of you listening out there.
Okay, so if this ultimate off-grid generator thing isn't the answer, what are some other paths to energy independence that are worth checking out? Are there any technologies out there that are truly sustainable and reliable?
Well, we've talked about a few already. Solar, wind, hydro, geothermal, they all have their strengths, and they're always improving. And there are some pretty cool advancements happening in battery storage, too, which is making renewable energy even more realistic for people who want to live off-grid.
Yeah, battery tech is getting so much better these days. It's amazing. I've also been hearing about these micro-hydro systems. They sound pretty interesting for people who have a stream or a creek on their property.
Right.
And of course, there's always the option of just using less energy in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Like making our homes more energy efficient.
Right. Energy efficiency is huge. It's often about combining different strategies and finding the right mix for your situation. And it's a learning process, too. There are tons of resources online. The Department of Energy's website is a good place to start. And there are all these forums and online communities for people who are into off-grid living.
It's really cool to see so many people embracing this whole movement towards energy independence. It's empowering to take control of your own energy and to rely less on the traditional systems.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's definitely a growing trend. And it's not just about individual benefits either. When we start using more sustainable energy, we're all contributing to a cleaner, more resilient energy future. It benefits everyone.
So I think we've given our listeners plenty to chew on today. We've debunked some myths, looked at some alternative solutions, and hopefully we've encouraged some folks to consider their own energy independence journey.
And I think we've really highlighted how important it is to think critically and make informed decisions. That's key.
Yeah, because when it comes down to it, it's not about finding that one ultimate solution. It's about finding the right approach for you, for your individual needs and your values.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And hey, who knows, maybe in a future deep dive, we'll actually stumble upon that truly amazing technology that really does live up to all the hype. Wouldn't that be something?
That would be incredible. Until then, we encourage all of you to stay curious, keep asking those questions, and never stop exploring all the different ways we can create a more sustainable and independent energy future.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We really appreciate you listening.
We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.